Hi everyone. So in this document, I cover the principle behind the Zoom discussions that I mentioned in the course outline and in the About This Course video. So what's going to happen is that each Wednesday during our scheduled class time, I'll host an informal discussion on Zoom. This is not an official class. I'm not going to be teaching any new material. I'm not going to be lecturing. I'm not going to be organizing elaborate activities. It's basically an open discussion. So they're participant driven, so it's kind of a space for students to bring in their any questions that they have or things that they want to talk about in more depth from the material from that week or even from prior weeks. As we go along in the semester, things kind of come back. There's a lot of overlap between topics, so if you one week you're like, oh yeah, I remember this thing we talked about 2-3 weeks ago and it's connected to what we're talking now, and I love that stuff. It's really important. So you can come to as many of those as you want. Like if you're really keen and you like that kind of thing, you like digging in and connecting with the rest of the group, by all means, come to as many as you want. You're only asked, though, to come to 5, so a minimum of 5, for which you will get marks. And even if you come to more than 5, for 5 of those, you're being asked to participate in a more active way. So say you come every class or you come 10 times, and a lot of the times maybe you're just kind of maybe sitting there and absorbing, and for some people that's enough, but at least 5 times in the semester I'd like for each student to come in prepared to talk about things a little more. Now, I'm not asking you to prepare a presentation, not at all. And you're not going to be talking necessarily for 5-10 minutes or anything like that. It's really casual, and you'll have the choice. So if we scroll down here, how do you get your points for participating? And by the way, just to reiterate, it's 2 points for each of those 5 sessions that you come to, for a total of 10% of your final mark. So, for each of these 5 sessions, it's about active participation to get your points. So it's not just showing up. And what that means, well, again, it can be asking questions, it can be making comments about the material, and I'll give you some examples of what that could look like a little bit below. And here, just to help you feel more comfortable, if you're really not comfortable, having your camera on and talking, that's okay. I mean, I do appreciate it if people have their cameras on, because it's actually really depressing to stare at a bunch of blank squares. It's like I want to stab myself in the eyeballs. But I know some people really can't for a variety of reasons. So, or even if you like having your camera off but speaking, even if there's only 5 people in the chat room, and you're like, so you'll have the option. Maybe as you get more comfortable, maybe you'll be more comfortable speaking up, but the chat function in Zoom works as well. So it's important to elaborate a little bit on what you have to say to get these active participation points. Just like a sentence like, I don't understand anything about the Indian Act. Like you're going to want to go like, okay, I read this and I was a bit confused about like these 2 points here, and these are the parts that I'm having a hard time understanding, and I'd really like it if somebody could tell me a little bit more about this thing right here and clarify how this works and that kind of thing. And then maybe when people kind of, if me or some of your peers responds, then you can kind of engage with them a little bit. Okay, but at the same time, you don't want to come with a 5-minute lecture on, a whole summary of a chapter that you liked. I mean, if we're only 2 or 3 people, we might have the time to listen to your all of your 5-minute summaries. But if there's a lot of people and we need a lot of people to have the time, what I'll do is at the beginning of each one, I'll say, okay, who's here as an active participant today? And if there are 10 people there, but only 4 of them are there as active participants for points, then we'll see, And then, of course, if you show up and you're not planning to be an active participant, but you decide to jump in, hey, no problem. You'll get your points. So, find a happy medium between, like, just this, like, 2 or 3 word utterance, which doesn't really tell us much, or typed out, and the other extreme, which is this long lecture. And as I said before, cameras aren't required. Out of compassion, though, I do ask that if you can have it on, then to have it on. We're not likely to have full classes for most of these sessions, especially if you come earlier on in the semester. A lot of people, a lot of us have this tendency to procrastinate. I include your teachers in that. And so a lot of people might wind up pushing these off until the end, and then when they see, oh geez, I'm on the edge of maybe not getting a passing grade, well, here I can get some extra points this way, and then at the end a whole bunch of people are coming at the same time, then it might be more stressful if you don't like to be with a bunch of people. So if you want it to be kind of chill, just start coming early, and maybe you'll enjoy it and not see it as just kind of this chore that you're doing for marks. And it'll help build community as well, because this kind of course would be a lot better in person. Usually I have a 3-hour block, and we get to kind of get into things, and we can organize trips, and what can you do? So examples of what your participation can look like. Again, so like I said, if there's something that's confusing in the reading or one of the videos you saw, and you're having trouble seeing how, so you might read 2 different things one week, and you're like, you don't see how they're connected, and you want help from the group. That's something you can bring to the table. You can talk about something you found interesting in the reading and explain what you found interesting about it, because maybe it reminded you of something you learned in another context, like I say here, right? So maybe there's something you can apply to our current social context, or something that you can relate to your own family. So maybe you have similar experiences as what is described in a video or reading, even if you're not Indigenous, right? Because a lot of people have experiences of marginalization sometimes, or maybe when there's stuff about like family values in a particular culture, maybe some people can relate, or so that kind of thing. See what you can relate to, see what you find interesting because it helped you think about something in a different way, or maybe it went against something you thought you knew, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't know that, and I thought it was this other thing, and oh wow, this opened up my brain a little bit. Another way that you can contribute actively is to respond to what other students have to say, again, in a bit of depth, right? Not just say, oh yeah, I agree with you. Oh yeah, that part sucked. Like just go beyond that. So if somebody's asking a question, they found something confusing, before I answer, I'm going to actually open it up and say, well, does anybody here feel that they can help clear this up? And that can be a chance for people to, be engaged as well by supporting your peers. And we're all in this together, and I try to foster a sense of collegiality in all my courses where, the academic world is competitive enough. When you get to university, especially if you go to grad school, you're going to see that. So I really try to get people to think in a different way. You're still going to have to face people who are very competitive, but you don't have to buy into that. Okay? I know that I don't. So in terms of assessment, well, how am I assessing you, right? Like I said, I'm looking for active engagement. So I will be kind of checking to see that you're there and engaged the whole time, which could be tricky if your camera is off. So if you choose to leave your camera off for these sessions when you are there as an active participant, it's not that I don't trust my students, but I have enough experience to know that it's really easy to leave your camera off, be one of the first people to go, and then walk away. So I'm gonna want to see that you're even, so maybe you made your you made a contribution, because down under here you can make at least one significant contribution, so you're going into some nice depth about something and elaborating in a few sentences, or you have some 2 smaller contributions where you're saying a little bit but then you pipe up again another time. That'll kind of even out. So if you've already made your 1 bigger contribution or 2 smaller ones, and we still have like a half hour of the meeting left and your camera's off, I'm gonna look for little signs that you're there, where you're just kind of maybe showing a little bit of agreement, or I might kind of randomly say, okay, so if you're still here, give a thumbs up in the chat or something like that. So it's kind of not really fair to other people if I don't do that. So there you go. This is how you are going to get this 10% of your mark by showing up 5 times and being engaged. It'll be fun, I promise.